lot of weird things been happening the last couple of weeks, week and a half out here in the Midwest. We've been having some really strange and horrible weather, I could say. Got hit with a couple of tornadoes, and we're not used to that close to the Chicagoland area. You know, you always get a lot of storms, a lot of rain, a lot of wind, but not tornadoes. And we got about 4 to 7 tornadoes. So what does that mean? That means folks lost power and had to go to hotels for multiple days and deal with the aftermath of Midwestern storms, stuff that we just genuinely are not used to and are not prepared for either, especially in the middle of summer when it's extremely hot outside, and then all of a sudden you lose power for a few days. So that sucks. That sucks a lot. Not to mention, it's back to school time, so it's almost time for the kids to go back to school, and now you have to deal with the fact that there's no power for a few days. Everything you got is being put on hold for a few days. You had food in the refrigerator. It's no longer viable anymore. Got to get rid of that. Still got to go to work. So just a lot to deal with. Didn't actually want to come and do this, sit down in front of this screen and talk. But you got so many things to do. It's just kind of rough. But you still got to push through it and get to it anyway, right? If you want to actually achieve your goals. That's a good and a bad thing sometimes. It was nice having the kids home for the summer. You know, we got a lot of yard work and things like that accomplished, housework. But it's also nice for them to go back and get back to learning, get back to education, get back to being with their friends and, accomplishing things. Most of my children are grown now, but I still have a couple of high schoolers. And I'm just excited for the whole high school situation, freshman and a sophomore. That's always a very interesting situation, boy and girl. So I'm very interested in them getting back to getting to sports and the whole, learning how to drive. That'll be nice. Somebody actually can go do some things other than myself when it comes to retrieving things for the house. So I'm looking forward to that. Once they actually get in school and get everything situated where we know exactly what the schedules look like, we'll be able to sign them up for every little program that we can. And that's one thing I always say to people. I had an interesting conversation with my sister because my sister's a big believer in private schooling. And I am not. Not private schooling, but homeschooling. I'm not. I feel like when a child goes to homeschool, they miss out on the experience of being with other kids and around other kids and learning what it's like to interact with people on a day-to-day basis. Almost like what you're going to have to do once you become an adult. So imagine you have kids, they're at home, they're homeschooled, they see their parents on a regular basis, and they might do some other things outside of that, go little programs here and do things like that, but they're still not getting the full experience of being in large settings with other people their age. There's a lot of positivity that comes from that. It's a lot of negativity that comes from that, but it's all, even the negative things are like character building. Sometimes even if you look back on like bullying is something that nobody should have to go through, but if you get through it and you become stronger from it, it just adds on to your personal abilities and your personality, and it makes you stronger. You never have to go through that unless your parents are the ones bullying you at home. But just different experiences that you get from being in large groups of people. It also relates to life, like work life. When you got to get up and go to the office or go to the factory or, whatever, go to the rail, whatever you got to do You have to learn how to have people skills and social skills and learning how to interact with people effectively. I just feel like if you're being homeschooled, that's going to handicap the process. That's going to make it harder for you to interact in a large group environment. And then you spend all your years going through homeschooling. And when it's time for you to be an adult and get out there on your own and learn things, now you're socially awkward. So to me, homeschooling hurts kids more than it actually benefits them. I told her, I said, well, if you're worried about, the public school setting, then spend the money and send them to private school. But I think she's even opposed to that for multiple reasons. But yeah, I think any healthy kid is going to have to be able to learn how to deal in a social setting. And that's why I'm personally against homeschooling. Let's just say, for instance, you homeschool your kid all the way through K to 12, and then they decide to go to college. Now, all of a sudden, they're pushed into a situation that they're not familiar with, living with other people, learning how to interact with other people. And there's also a socioeconomic situation. Unless you are capable or you plan on taking care of your kids financially the entire time they're off at college. So now all of a sudden, and a lot of kids, they don't do that. They get up, they go to school, they get jobs while they're at school, they learn at the same time. So now all of a sudden your child's not prepared for any of those things. And you've seen a lot of very young people struggle economically during school and even after school. It's like, especially in certain areas of the country, these jobs aren't paying enough in order for people to make a good living like we used to in this country. The middle class is rotting away. It takes a lot more and a lot more effort to just have the basics. And that's something that we got to work on, the affordability situation. That's a very serious, very prevalent thing in American society right now. And young people, I believe, experience that more than anybody. Because I hear my kids say, "Oh, you look at the world is coming to an end right when I graduate," and I think that's the feelings of a lot of people in that age range. I was just looking at this mayor in New York. And he was talking about opening 5 stores that'll be run by the city of New York or maybe the state of New York, and I think that's a very interesting situation because apparently they feel like they can get that done at a 30% discount from other retail stores. Now, I know we live in a capitalist society, and I think there's space for both, though, because if you're in large cities, one of the things you notice is that the best stores are typically on the outskirts of the cities, like in the suburbs. So now you have these food deserts in these very large cities, and I would imagine that programs like this are going to actually do something about it. And if they do something about it, you get people and food being supplied, and you can do it at a discount because it's not the government's job to make profit. And I imagine if you're a large retailer of a store, you got a problem with that. Because now all of a sudden, in certain areas, people realize we can get this stuff if we just remove the middleman, and we can still get our needs met because it's not the government's job to make money. Now, on the opposite flip side of that, I can see if you're like a small retailer type of situation, you would like for you to be able to open a place of your own, be entrepreneurial, be able to get in there and, supply needs for your community and still make an income for yourself. So that 30% goes a long way if you're a small independent person. But if you got thousands of stores across America, big cities having city-run stores, I don't think would be a big issue for anybody. I think it takes care of everybody, supplies the needs of everybody. So I would like, because I live in the Chicagoland area, so I actually would like it if if we did a little bit more of that, because the end goal should always be what's best for the people that's involved. How am I making life better for my people? There are certain places in America that no matter what you do, you have to have an entrepreneur bring it to you because it's not practical for the government to do it. So, and that's what you'll have in these situations. If you live in the middle of somewhere that, is hard to get to and it doesn't benefit the actual city or state to supply whatever it is that you need, then you'll have an entrepreneur come in and fill that gap. And I understand that perfectly well. But in other places, you have instabilities. And it's hard to figure out where are these instabilities coming from. Why is it hard to get certain foods for people that live in big cities, like fresh foods especially? If you're out in the suburbs or even the rural areas, a lot easier to get fresh fruits and vegetables and things like that as opposed to the center part of the city. It's like a premium for those things. So taking the profit margin off of the people and putting it back into the town or the city, that makes a lot of sense, because why are the people paying extra 30% when it's hard for them to even get good quality food in the first place? So, and I talked to somebody who worked and I think he said he worked at Myers for like 20 years or Walmart 10 years or something like that as a district manager or an assistant district manager. And I asked him, hey, what do you think? Because he's a very business type of guy. I asked him, hey, what do you think about that? He was like, I love it. I think they should give it a shot. And that's my thing. Who's automatically opposed to something that's going to benefit large groups of people? It's always whoever's making the money from it, right? So I'm not surprised when I see, owners of large retail stores saying, yeah, this is going to be a failure. It's going to, it's not going to go anywhere. Of course they're going to say that. You just made the government your competition. They don't want to see that. And my thing is, if it does fail, then it was worth trying, because at least you're trying to figure out how to make food more affordable for your constituents. And that's the job of any politician. So I'm hoping that we can get something similar like that in the Chicagoland area, and just start doing things more independently. And because apparently the current system isn't doing it for everybody. So if that's the case, then that means we need to do something outside of that system, make some sort of change. And that's what it's looking like. And I'm hoping, like I said, it comes this way. But other than that, yeah, it's been a little crazy just trying to get back to the rhythm and the flow of actually putting stuff out, because the storms made things a little difficult and a little busy. Back to school time did the same thing, and every day is something brand new, which I appreciate. It's better than having nothing to do.